Hello everybody, thank you for joining me. I'm Yotam from Kudota. Today we're going to talk about React Hooks, a feature that was released on version 16.8 of React back in November 2018. That was forever ago, I know. The main purpose of this feature is to make our state management a lot more easier, intuitive, and also it means that we don't need to use class components anymore. Yeah, I know, shocking. Instead, we are going to use functional components only. Let me show you how it's done. We're going to take an already existing class component and refactor it to a functional component using React hooks. Let's go. So we're going to use this container here as our example. It has a dark mode, a light mode, and a name chooser. The properties for whatever is going on in this container are kept in a state object, in a class component that we all know so well. And we're going to refactor it into a functional component using React hooks. So let's go ahead and start. So the first thing we want to do is to import a so-called hook named useState from React library. And once we have that, we don't need this extends component part anymore, and we don't need to declare this component as a class component because now it's a functional component. So we're gonna put it in a constant with the same name, home. We're gonna give it props. And using an arrow function, now we have a regular functional component that we can use to manage our state with hooks. The next thing we want to do is to destructure this state object into separated hooks that each one holds the current state for this property and the current state for this property and a setting function for each one of them. Let me show you how it's done. So the first one is dark mode. So this constant will get an array of exactly 2 elements. The first will be our current state that we're talking about. So this is dark mode. And the second element will be its setter. So we will call it set is dark mode. Now this is just a convention. You can call it whatever you want. And now we need to paste our use state here, and we're going to give it the initial state. This one will be false. And the second constant will hold the second state property that we want to manage. So it's gonna be chosen name. And again, we need an array of exactly 2 elements. The first one is the property itself with its current value. And the second is its own setter. So again, it's just a convention, but it's better to use it than not to use it. So it's going to be set chosen name. And we're going to give it use state with an initial state of the name Jack. Now let's comment out this state object, because we don't use it now. And now we need to make sure that our handling functions are talking with our hooks. And this is how we do it. First of all, we need to put it in constants this way. We don't need events, and actually we don't need anything in here because we're not using set state, we're not using prev state now, and we're not even using this. So let's remove this. And instead, we just need to call the setter that we wish to use in order to change the current state that we are talking about. In this case, this is our dark mode handler. So we need to call that set is dark mode into action. So we just put it here, we call it, and we give it the next state that we wish to change. Now, since this is a toggle state, it only has false and true, we just need to make sure that it's going to be the opposite of what we had before. This means that we need to have not is dark mode. Fair enough? Great. So now let's do the same thing with our second handler, which is the name handler. So we're not using set state, we're not using this, we don't even need to destructure anything from our state. Instead, we just call the setter which is set chosen name. And we're going to give it the name that we pass into it. Just like that, actually. We just take this part, and this is what we're going to have. Great, we're good to go. So now we can talk about the render method. In functional components, unlike class components, the lifecycle method is a bit different. We don't use component did mount, component will unmount, render, and all this anymore. Instead, since this is a functional component, it will return whatever we tell it to return. And we would probably want to return the virtual DOM part, right? So we need to wrap it in a variable, in a let, in a constant. It's up to you. First, let me take this out because it's not part of the render anymore. And instead, I will change this render function into a let content. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm going to call it let content. It's not returning yet. We will return it only after it's done. Right over here, return content. And this is unnecessary. And now we just need to refactor all the elements inside this virtual DOM part to make sure that they set the setters of the hooks correctly. Now, since we don't use the state object anymore and we have our state properties kept in their own constants, we don't need to use this and we don't need to use state when we wish to change anything in our state. So every time we find this and state in the virtual DOM part, we just let it go. Is dark mode? This is dark mode over here, which right now initially is false. We wish to change it. We just call the dark mode handler that will activate the setter, which is set is dark mode, that will change the is dark mode. So let's get rid of this also, and that, and also this one, and here, also here, and that, and this. This is a lot of fun, right? We do need to keep, we don't need this state anymore, not here, and I think we're done. So let's go back to the browser and see if it worked. And it didn't because I didn't export the components, sorry, my bad. There it is, now it should work. Does it? Yes, it's working. We have a dark mode, a light mode, we have name chooser. Everything works perfectly. Thank you for watching this, guys. This was my take on React hooks, a method that makes state management a lot easier. I hope you took some tips from it, and if you wish to see more videos, you can check out my blog at codota.com. I will be here next week with my next tip. Stay tuned. Bye-bye.